Or that was the point. A country singularly obsessed with controlled reserve and conformity, with engineering watches, with the promptness of trains, would, it follows, have an advantage in the emergency of a body smashed to pieces. That Switzerland is also a country of many languages is what granted my brother and me unexpected reprieve from the familial gloom. The institute was in Basel, where the language is Schweizerdeutsch, but my mother was of the opinion that we should continue our French. Schweizerdeutsch was only a hairbreadth removed from Deutsch, and we were not allowed to touch anything even remotely Deutsch, the language of our maternal grandmother, whose entire family had been murdered by the Nazis. We were therefore enrolled in the École Internationale in Geneva. My brother lived in the boarding house on campus, but as I just barely turned 13, I didn't make the cutoff. To save me from the traumas associated with Deutsch, a solution was found for me in the western outskirts of Geneva, and in September 1987, I became a boarder in the home of a substitute English teacher named Mrs. Elderfield. She had hair dyed the color of straw, and the rosy cheeks of someone raised in a damp climate, but she seemed old all the same. My small bedroom had a window that looked onto an apple tree. On the day that I arrived, red apples were fallen all around it, rotting in the autumn sun. Inside the room was a small desk, a reading chair, and a bed at whose foot was folded a gray wool army blanket, old enough to have been used in a world war. The brown carpet was worn down to the weave at the threshold. 2 other boarders, both 18, shared the back bedroom at the end of the hall. All 3 of our narrow beds had once belonged to Mrs. Elderfield's sons, but they had grown up and moved away long before we girls arrived to occupy them. There were no photographs of her boys, so we never knew what they looked like, but we rarely forgot that they had once slept in our beds. Between Mrs. Elderfield's absent sons and us, there was a carnal link. There was also no mention of Mrs. Elderfield's husband, if she'd ever had one. She was not the sort of person who invited personal questions. When it was time to sleep, she switched off our lights without a word. On my first evening in the house, I sat on the floor of the older girls' room among their piles of clothes. Back home, the girls sprayed themselves with a cheap men's cologne called Drakkar. But the strong perfume that permeated these girls' clothes was unfamiliar to me. Mixed with their body heat and the chemistry of their skin, it mellowed, but from time to time it built up so strongly in their bedsheets and tossed off shirts and bags that Mrs. Elderfield forced open the windows, and the cold air once again stripped everything bare. I listened as the older girls discussed their lives in coded words I didn't understand. They laughed at my naivete, but they were both only ever kind to me. Marie had come from Bangkok via Boston, and Soraya from the 16th arrondissement of Paris via Tehran, where her father had been the royal engineer to the Shah before the revolution had sent their family into exile, too late to pack Soraya's toys, but in time to transfer most of their liquid assets. Wildness, sex, stimulants, a refusal to comply, is what had landed them both in Switzerland for an extra year of school, a 13th year that previously neither of them had ever heard of. We used to set out for school in the dark. To get to the bus stop, we had to cross a field, which by November was covered in snow that the sheared brown stalks sorted through. We were always late. I was always the only one who'd eaten. Someone's hair was always wet, the ends frozen. We huddled under the enclosure, inhaling secondhand smoke from Soraya's cigarette. The bus took us past the Armenian church to the orange tram. Then it was a long ride to the school on the other side of the city. Because of our different schedules, we rode back alone. Only on the first day, at Mrs. Elderfield's insistence, did Marie and I meet up to travel together, but we took the tram in the wrong direction and ended up in France. After that, I learned the way, and usually I broke up the journey by stopping in the tobacco shop next to the tram stop, where before catching the bus, I bought myself some candy from the open containers that, according to my mother, were crawling with strangers' germs. I'd never been so happy or so free. It wasn't only the difficult and anxious atmosphere of our family that I